Our next guest shared many amazing stories from his work with artists such as Kylie, Madonna, and Beyonce. He has a new single called Love's the Message. Papo Com Helal is beyond excited to receive Mark Picchiotti for a journey through music. Well, Mark, I need to improve my English because, okay, I'm Brazilian and of course I read a lot of English articles, but I need to improve and speak more in English. So let's try. Okay, Rodrigo?
Okay.
You worked on many remixes and song productions for artists who we love, such as Beyonce, Rihanna, Katy Perry, and especially Kylie Minogue. Is there any artist you dream of working with?
That's a tough one because I used to have a bucket list of artists. So before I die, and it was about, I probably formed it about 20 years ago, and maybe a little longer because I really didn't think some of the artists were going to happen, like Madonna. I mean, you know, I'm not young, so Madonna definitely was probably one of the biggest influential artists in my career. More so from the standpoint of the entire package, the whole thing, from her beginnings, her ambition, you know, just changing the way she looked, changing her sound, but always based on the fact that she was trying to say something. But yeah, so when I mean, the first remix was Bedtime Stories. And in fact, I can tell you a little bit of story a lot of people don't know. So every record Madonna had released up until then had gone to #1 on the Billboard dance charts, every record. And all of a sudden it looked like this one wasn't gonna make it. So quickly they put out a call to 4 different remixers. And at the time I was working with a partner, Terry Bristol, female, good friend of mine. And so we were one of the 4. So anyway, Madonna approves everything. So we found out in short order, she didn't like any of them. She liked only ours. So they took them, put them out to the Billboard reporters, and in 3 weeks it went to #1. So that was a fun. But the second story is as it relates to Love Don't Live Here Anymore. So the story behind that quickly was I was asked to remix it. And it's a cover of a ballad by a band called Rose Royce. It's a beautiful, laid back kind of thing. And no diss to Madonna, but she doesn't have, you know, that big, huge voice and that engaging kind of delivery like some R&B artists. So she sang it very easy and light. And I was like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? So I realized that the song was actually about 65 beats a minute. So I could just double the tempo, and I did that. And then I thought the only way to really get this thing going is to add backing vocals. So I wound up producing the record. I brought in backing vocals, and I produced this kind of choir gospel sort of background framework. And now when you hear the record, it actually sounds like a gospel record. And it's 10 minutes long, and it's worth every minute of it because there's just some really great moments. And Madonna was filming Evita. She had just started filming Evita. They were on the last single from the last record. Before the Evita album. She was in the studio, so I finished it. They sent it to her. She's in Buenos Aires. It took 3 months to hear back. And apparently it was because she was torn. She loved what I did, but because I had produced it into a whole different arena, it took her a while to get her head wrapped around it. Well, she finally did. And then not only did she give it its blessing, but the label had approached her about actually taking my new production and make it the A-side and the official single release, which she agreed to. Then we spent 2 more months in contract negotiations, and unfortunately during that time, the powers that be decided that they wanted Don't Cry For Me Argentina to be the next release. They were done with the last album, and they moved on to it. So that's why it's still only a promo, and no one's ever seen it really a commercial release. But we're trying to work on something for that, actually, because it's probably one of my most #1 streamed remixes is the Madonna Love Don't Live Here. But lately, I think the first time I ever heard Meghan Trainor, I was pretty blown away because of her style. It had that retro vibe. And I just thought, man, I'd love to get my hands on her, do a track with her. And along those lines, Ariana Grande. I'd love to do like a gospel house record with her.
Wow.
Just let her just rip, because people do gospel house, but they don't do it like I do it. I mean, it's just, that's my real favorite of all, is doing gospel house. And I've got more coming. I've got a record with Suzanne Palmer coming out that was, she was the singer on The Absolute. If you aren't familiar with The Absolute's my gospel house project. The song was called There Will Come a Day. And it's the record that blew up in my career. And I think as far as male vocalists, I'd love to work with Sam Smith.
Yeah.
Ed Sheeran and Bruno Mars.
You abandoned me. Love don't live here anymore. Just a vacancy.
There's a Brazilian artist I've been turned on to, Anitta.
Oh, Anitta, of course.
Oh, I just love what she's about, man. It just, she did a track with Cardi B.
Yes.
That's why I got introduced to her.
Wow.
And then I found out that she worked with Major Lazer and Madonna and Nile Rodgers. So, yeah, bring that girl over here.
Yeah.
Definitely would like to do something with her. I'm actually looking back at my remix. So I have my record collection, obviously, down in the corner.
Oh my God. This is awesome.
Let's see if I can show you. Down the bottom row, starting there all the way to back behind me. That's the vinyl versions of every record I've ever done.
Wow.
So I always look back there. That kind of reminds me, transformative mixes, I would say, are going to be my favorite. So the ones where I took a song and you had no idea that it could sound like it did. And this is an obscure, I'll start with an obscure one. It's by Kelly LaRock, K-E-L-E-L-E-R-O-C. The song's called My Love. It was a ballad, an R&B ballad, and I turned it into this disco record that just, so here with the stats. So I did the mix for Parlophone Records back in the day, and then went on my merry way because I was doing like 3-4 remixes a month, making a lot of money in those days on remixes. And I was in England about 6 months later, meeting with the head of the label, and at that time they had dropped Kelly, and I said, hey, what happened with that project? You dropped her. He said, well, we released the album, and the album didn't do well, but your remix we put as the single, and because of all the compilations, we recouped her £500,000 advance off of your remix, and we got our money back, so we felt we could let the project go. Something like that. So I love what that remix became. So that was one. I would say Beyonce Formation. Back in 2016, I did that with a production partner, John Keenan, and we just went really weird and obscure because I knew with Beyonce, I've remixed her 3 times, that her bar is really high. I mean, you really got to pass through and there are a lot of people, and they have a very specific sound. And this is 2016, and I saw what she was doing with Lemonade, and I thought, okay, this is all about pushing the edge, pushing the envelope. So that's what we did with the mix. It's a very deep tech kind of a thing, and all the mixes turned in, that's the only one that got accepted. So those that's one of the more recent ones, I think.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting to know that like Beyonce has like an army around her.
Army, yeah.
Oh, one other record, Enrique Iglesias, Turn the Night Up. So that was an EDM record that I turned into a disco record. I'm gonna tell you, I turned that bitch out. I turned it out. Check it out. Mark Picchiotti, new disco version of Enrique Iglesias, Turn the Night Up.
Maybe it's you see, we can turn the night up. And if you feel the way I feel, we can turn
question. Have you been to one of the concerts of any artist you worked with? As a musician, how do you feel when you see an artist performing one of your songs live?
Well, my very first record, actually good question, because a lot of people don't know this. So I've been making records since 1989. My first big record, sort of false start in that it was a big record. I produced an album from an artist named Latour. There were two songs off of that. The first was called People Are Still Having Sex. And that was very, controversial at the time. It was 1990. And there was a line in there that said, people are still having sex. It's happening all around. This AIDS thing's not working. And that made it, because that was when AIDS, there was no cure, there was nothing going on. And so it was controversial. I mean, it wasn't a diss. He was just saying even AIDS doesn't stop people from having sex. It was a testament or a testimony to sex. But we had to go back in the studio and change the word AIDS to safe for radio. So it said the safe thing is not working. But how did I get onto that subject? I got distracted.
You were talking about like
you asked me.
people, you know, that you produced before.
Oh, thank you. That's it. Yeah. So the first
performing.
time I saw him, he was on Top of the Pops in the UK,
Okay.
and that was pretty shocking. Actually, before that, hearing it on the radio, because it was a top 40 record in America. Hearing it on the radio the first time, I remember I was told it was going to be played. So I went to my cassette deck, right, back in the day. I put it in a record at the beginning of the radio show, and eventually they played it. So that was the first time I'd heard it anywhere. And then when he performed on Top of the Pops, that was another just sort of sublime, surreal kind of experience, I think.
But people are still having sex and nothing seems to stop them.
And then when Kylie did Butterfly live in her show, that was, I even get chills thinking about it, because I didn't know who Kylie Minogue was. Because, I mean, I knew who she was, but in America, her only hit up until Light Years and Fever was Locomotion.
True.
So all of everything else, only Europe, only Australia. It just never made it to America. So when I went to producer, I knew she was a pop star, but whose star had faded, and that they were trying to resurrect it. So I didn't really understand the enormity of the brand until I worked on the next album. And I remember coming into London, getting off at the tube station in Hammersmith, and I walked over to the EMI building. And on the corner of the building, it's only a 3-story building. It looks like a prison because there's no windows, but for, I want to say 100 meters, there's a wall. And that, I walked out of the tube stop, I come around the corner, I look up, and it was a 100-meter long poster by maybe 40 meters high of Kylie Minogue laying out on the side. And I just froze. And I thought, oh my God, what have I got myself into? So to then later see, you know, to really understand and appreciate the enormity of her artistry, and then seeing her in front of, you know, 20,000 people and performing Butterfly, which unfortunately never got to be a single, but she did it a lot because people wanted it to be a single. That gave me chills. The way I came into this business is slightly unorthodox, although nowadays a little more commonplace. So to know that I sat in a studio and created all of this stuff that 30 years ago I wouldn't have even begun to know how to do it, and then to see it materialize on a pop star was just a nice stamp of approval to let me know that I was on the right track, I guess.
Yeah.
I think you guys wanted to ask me which album was my favorite.
Yes, we do.
That's not a fair question.
Which one?
On Light Years, and I don't know, there were just so many cool, there was a fresh rebirth about that record, and all of a sudden she went from this dark rock thing, which was really genius, but the fans just weren't having it, to coming up with this pop album that was, I mean, you know, it was just so pop. It was so right on the money that I'm gonna have to go. I don't know. And then I'm in London, right? This story, and I'd flown there to work with her. Now it was really difficult to work with her because she was everywhere. And I got 2 days in the studio with her in this little teeny studio. Honestly, no bigger than a bedroom with a vocal booth the size of a closet. And I only got to work for a short period of time, but and that's when I did 3 songs with her, one of which, the one that was on the album, was Give It To Me. And we co-wrote that song together, me, Steve Anderson, and Kylie. And we demoed them all, and that's the one that they picked. They wanted to finish up. But I mean, I have so many stories about that. She recorded in this closet, and it was supposed to be a demo, but then I couldn't get back to London, so they just said, roll with that vocal. So I did, and I brought in background singers who sounded like Kylie, so I could get the background sound to sound like it was her doing the vocals.
Wow.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, it just, and they did a great job. It didn't take anything away from her because I would have added additional vocals anyway. But when I was in the studio, Miles Leonard, who at the time was the head of Parlophone and A&Ring the album, came in and he's like, you guys got to hear it. This is going to be the first single. It's a smash, right? So he plays me, Can't Get You Out of My Head. And I'm listening to it. And of course, my producer brain is going, oh, this needs a producer. This is a demo, right? And it was the final version. And he's playing it. And I was like, it's a good song, trying to kind of, you know, be laid back. I said, so you guys need a producer on that? He's like, oh no, this is finished. I'm like, it is? He said, yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, it's amazing. Because I'm trying to sell myself a little bit on it. But I honestly, you know, when you hear a record if you have the privilege of hearing a record before it gets big, you just never think it's going to. I mean, that thing was right on the money. An 8-year-old can sing la 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 la. I mean, genius writing, and that was written by Kathy Dennis.
Kathy
Dennis, yeah.
And Rob Davis. So, and I have some songs that Rob and I have written together, so I knew them pretty well. They wrote a lot of what was on that album. So, in any event, I digress. But yeah.
So you recorded 3 songs for Fever. So there is, of course, you know, Give It To Me, and 2 others that never made it. That's why.
Correct. Yeah.
Oh,
You have one.
I have one that is a demo that I can't do anything with it, guys. I wish I could play it for you, but
no problem.
You gotta be kidding.
but I also, this is a little known fact, not that anyone would know
There's
it.
a name, the title of songs. No.
Could we know the title of the song?
Yeah, I gotta sing it in my head. Don't Say That You Love Me.
Don't Say That You Love Me?
That's
Okay.
Don't Say That You Love Me. Okay, what I have in my hand here, let's see if we can zoom in on it.
Oh my God.
It says Kylie Minogue, Under the Influence. Oh, Influence, Final Mixes.
Whoa,
So-
final mixes. Oh.
So what this is this is the DAT of the song Under the Influence. And so I might as well tell the story. When I did Butterfly, it was for an album. And this is 1999. So at the time, artists weren't doing dance music unless they were dance artists. But even if they were, the album version was different than the club version, right? It tended to be more album, more commercial. So everything you hear in Butterfly was pretty much it, except the drums and the bass. I had a much simpler, lighter drum and bass combination because I thought it was appropriate for the album. And I turned it in, and Miles called me and he goes, I love what you did, but make it more danceable. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, make it. I'm like, okay. So I simply went in, removed the drums, put in some tough pumping drums, and removed the bass line, which I think that's really what gave it its balls, if you will. And so they had a similar situation with the song Under the Influence, which I forgot, Biff Stannard maybe was the producer, I don't remember at this time. But they said, hey, we want you to do to Under the Influence what you did to your own version of Butterfly. So I did. And long story short, it, for whatever reason, never saw the light of day. So I have finished version. I've extended mixes of it as well, and I wish there was something I could do with it. So maybe at some point, if they do some retrospective, this can wind up getting put out. So
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
so I just want you guys to know, these are stories I've never told ever.
Oh God.
In the
my
public,
goodness.
in public. So
Thank
this
you.
is the first time I've never had the opportunity, you know. So the 20th anniversary of the release of Light Years. So
Years.
yeah, and I don't know if you guys know this either, but before Butterfly, before the album, I signed Butterfly to my label, to Blue Plate Records. It was Strictly Rhythm, it's a real cool underground dance label. Blue Plate already had some big hits on it. I said, why don't we use the brand of Blue Plate, stick Kylie on it, send it out as a promo, and, you know, give it that angle. So anyway, so we released it, and just in America as an import on Blue Plate. In fact, this is 2000, so before internet commerce or anything. So we created a website. You go to the website, and if you wanted to buy it, you called us on the phone. Literally, you called on the phone. We took your order and we shipped it out. We sold 15,000 copies of it in 2 weeks, and that was it. We were done. This is the vinyl. Wait, I got it upside down.
Wow.
So that's the vinyl. And then on the flip side was a picture of Kylie. And then what happened was we did CDs as well. And during the first run of the CDs, there was a misprint. And so under the CD that had the misprint, we sent them one of these, which is a Kylie Minogue poster. You can't get this. I'd be happy to send you guys one if you send me your address.
Oh my God. Really?
Yeah, sure.
You can call me Rod if you want, R-O-D.
Okay. Yep.
And my name Igor too. What's
I'm
it?
gonna do your own, Igor. To Rod, but if you want me to add your last name on there, I will.
No, it's perfect like this.
Oh my God.
All right, let me grab one for you, Igor. Just
This is fantastic. Wow. Thank you.
Now that we are talking about Kylie, I have to question about, are you excited for disco album?
I was eagerly anticipating it because the edict was disco. So I was curious to see how they were going to interpret the word disco, because everybody interprets it different. I mean, I grew up with disco. That's why I got into the business. Actually, Donna Summer is single-handedly the most influential. She was the catalyst that got me into soul, R&B, and disco. That literally changed the trajectory of my life. When I did Give It To Me, just so you know, I finished it. It was a Sunday, and I spent a lot of time on that song. Then the next day they called me and they said, good news, it wound up making it on the album. And I was like, what do you mean it wound up making it on the album? I have a contract, I got paid. And they said, oh yeah, we had 36 songs to consider. Had I known that, oh my God, I would have been so panicky. I don't think I would have, it would have been what it was. So that was kind of a fun thing to find out. So and with big artists, that's what they do. They create a lot of music, finish it all, and then, as they should, and then go through and figure out what would make the most comprehensive album.
You know that like a lot of Kylie fans thought that your song would be in disco. You know that, like you.
I do. I'm very aware of that.
Yeah,
and just
like your name was everywhere. People were getting crazy because I guess you posted 2 snippets. One was from
Love Is a Message.
Love is a message.
Yeah, and because of that sound, a lot of people said, "Oh, this is Kylie's disco."
I don't know. I haven't heard the whole album, so I'm still not sure what else is on there. So
Okay.
Give it to me like I want it.
We can talk about Love Is the Message. But I'm also glad that it's not for Kylie, because that allows me to get a chance to know Kenyatta better. You know what I'm saying? That gives me the chance to discover someone else.
the lead singer is Kenyatta White, and I met her about 8 years ago. And I did a record with her in 2013 called Rumors. And then last year, I found myself with a lot of tracks. I've been creating tracks. So I invited her in and I said, you want to just write to some of these tracks? And so we wrote 2 of the songs. Something that when I write, I tend not to write anything that's vapid, that doesn't have meaning. I like to put some meaning into my songs, even if it's meaning that only that's appropriate for a teenager. But at the same time, if I'm feeling it, as an older person, then maybe everyone in between that will feel it. So I just wanted to do Love is the Message, and the idea that when you're, and this is true, when you're out on the dance floor, and it's a proper club, not a bar or where there's a dance floor. I mean, a proper club. I think there is a lot of love that goes around. So right now it's available on TrackSource. By the time this interview airs, it'll be available worldwide. But right now it's a 2-week limited run. It just came out 2 days ago. It's at number 8 on the TrackSource disco chart already. So I'm pretty happy about that.
Yeah.
So is Kenyatta.
Congrats.
Love is the message. The message is good. The message is power. Here with me on the dance floor. So get on up, get some. Since you out here, give some. Give it all you got, cause love is the message.
Wow, what an experience. This was really, really, really good. Yeah.
I'm glad you like it. So the idea is, come out onto the dance floor and experience this. And then she spoke it. Then she said, the message is good. The message is power here with me on the dance floor. So get on up, get some, come out here, give some, because love is the message.
How do you feel on like producing a song about that in a year where unfortunately we cannot go anywhere?
Yeah, it's well, I mean, it's a really a good question. It does. I'm bummed that the club world is shut, essentially because we don't have that outlet. But at the same time, it was very encouraging once things shut and everyone started to do their virtual festivals. I mean, who doesn't dance around in the shower or in the kitchen or, when everyone in the spirit moves you? Yeah.
I were a boy, even just for a day. I'd roll out of bed in the morning and throw on what I wanted to know.
The coronavirus and being locked down or locked in, there's no DJ gigs. That's probably the biggest part, is that part of the income for myself and any other artist performing live. It's been tough, but I just decided, all right, well, I'm just gonna go in my vaults and see what vocal records I got, what other records do I have, and as a result, I've actually I've probably got 7 other records in the works, 4 of which are collaborations. So I'm working with a Swedish producer named QX. I have another singer who I finished the track. I just sent it to her. I want her to write the top line. It's been a really fun experience. I've never collaborated like this before. I've been doing some live sets, streaming. I'm going to be doing one in about a month. I'm doing a mini concert with Suzanne Palmer. So that was the singer on the record, There Will Come a Day by The Absolute, that broke us. So this is the 25th anniversary. So I have a new record with her called Love Reaction that's coming out on Nervous Records on December 11th. And I'm also starting a Spotify playlist that's disco, just straight up disco. I have 2. One that's disco, it's called Discopia. And the other one is just house, and it's called For House Music Lovers.
You have headlined Sydney Mardi Gras. How was the experience?
It was amazing. It just, first off, I'd never been to Sydney, so that was beautiful. So there were 2 parts of my gig. There was I was the headline, so I did the closing at Mardi Gras. But then the day after, there's a day party called Laneway, and it's held on a street. They close out this street, and it starts I think at noon, and it goes till 10 at night, whatever. And so I did the closing set, which meant I started at 4 a.m. and I went till 8 a.m.
Wow.
So I had the serious crowd at that time. That was just amazing. The light show was amazing. They had a dance troupe who came out and performed to my remix of Beyonce's Formation. It had just come out that year, so that was pretty surreal to watch. There was a version of I Feel Love that Donna Summer did that was produced by Masters of Work. So they had her come in the studio and re-vocal a bunch of things. She sang all these new things. So I have a copy of that, the a cappella intro. And she does this I Feel Love and holds the note really long, really long. So I lifted that, I produced a track, I stuck her on top of it and dropped it to Donna doing I Feel Love, and then it builds and it builds and it builds. And when it comes crashing in, it crashes into Love Is in the Air. Love is in the air everywhere.
Wow.
I have video of this. The entire dance floor just exploded. So over the years, I've contributed as a DJ in Chicago, which is where I'm from. We had a circuit party that's, it's one of their big party. They no longer do it, but it was called Bringing Hearts Together, the Hearts Party, and then it was rebranded called Fireball. So I did that 5 times, and each one was a benefit, and I loved it. I mean, I would have paid them to do the gig. And that was for Test Positive Aware, TPA. It's a network that focuses on the LGBTQ plus community as far as it relates to HIV and AIDS research. So I helped in that, and there was, it never came to fruition, but I was working with Ryan White Foundation to do a single called Be Proud with the season 1 winner of RuPaul's Drag Race, so Bibi Zahara Benet. So Bibi Zahara Benet is, I signed her to my label, and she did, her first single was called I'm the Shit. It was a big record, it did well. So I actually was the official DJ for RuPaul's Drag Race for 2 years. So after the show was over, they would take the girls on tour, and I with them, and I was the DJ for the night at all the major cities. So we were going to do this theme song. Donna was called Be Proud, and for whatever reason, the time didn't work out. That's something I enjoy doing. I do work with, and I don't want to betray people's anonymity. So I work with young people who have grown up in environments, in particular gay young kids, and not so much as a mentor. I never give advice. I'm not an advice giver. I share my experience because I grew up in an environment like that, and we talk about negative into positive. It was, it turned me into the person I am today because I learned how to deal with finding who I am. If you find out who you are and you own who you are, then nobody can argue it. You know it's you. You don't even have to defend it. But I'm a college professor as well, and I do that specifically to teach young people because they take the class because it's me, and I give them all of Mark Picchiotti. I teach Pro Tools and studio production. But it goes beyond that. My class goes beyond the classroom. And I always tell them that. I said, okay, now we're going to do a little beyond the classroom lesson. And I start to talk about some bigger picture things. So. So Gary Barlow, when Take That dissolved, Gary and Robbie were doing their own album. So I was brought in to produce a song for Gary Barlow, which was a cover of a song by Roachford called Cuddly Toy. And Gary's a pop artist, but you listen to that song, straight up disco, live horns, live bass. I even the vocals, I threw in every disco cliche. The girls go do 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 do, all these do 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 pow, all this big stuff, but it works. It works. So I love doing that type of production. The problem is money. A record like that cost me probably $3,000 in musicians because I had orchestras and all of that. Anything as far as disco, as long as you keep as long as the groove, it's got to have the disco groove. Whether the kick drum is loud or not, as long as there's a groove, because to be honest with you, especially like even in the 70s, there were some crap songs, but the tracks were so cool, it didn't matter. And we're doing that again. There are some crap songs on amazing disco records. You're like, oh, this is cool. Or they just sing one word, love, you know, but it's a cool track. So I like to take a good song with a disco groove and blend those together and hopefully up the ante. So,
yeah. Have you been to Brazil? I don't know, Igor, if we had that question on our list.
No.
It is on there.
Yeah.
That's actually a good question.
Yeah, we have this question about Brazil.
I have not. I was offered a DJ gig there some years ago, and it was, bear with me, it was in the Amazon, right, in the jungle part, but it was a really big city. I don't know,
Manaus?
I'm bad at geography. What was it?
Manaus?
That's it. That was it.
Manaus.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
very big city, huh?
And I think at the time I was trying to get some other gigs because the money was good, but it didn't quite warrant the full commitment to go there for one gig. So they tried to get me other gigs, and that didn't work out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to play Brazil.
Doesn't matter what's going on, who's around. All I see is you. Right now, playing our song, dance floor is ours. All I see is you.
Of course that I love Kylie Minogue, but I also love Danny Minogue, her sister. So,
She's been in my DJ sets. Yeah.
oh,
No, not as a live performer. Her records, I played.
Oh, okay.
okay.
Well, would you like to work with her one day?
There's a lot of music you guys don't know I've done. I've worked with AC/DC. I've worked with The Prodigy. I've worked with Yellow, Heaven 17, Bruce Springsteen. I mean, it's really across the map. I'm just focused on this sound right now because this is what is working, and you can't be too diverse. So if I like the artist and what they're about, like Danny, then yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just, she's got that voice, that cute, you know, identifiable voice, just like her sister. You hear the voice, you're like, yeah, I know who that is. I'd love to work with Adele. You know, oh my God, that was just ridiculous. Put her seriously on a dance record with a big gospel choir.
Yeah, that is true. I'm gonna ask the very last question then.
Okay.
Would you like to collaborate with Kylie one day? Again?
Genius to work with. Oh my God, she's like a computer. She's like a machine. She comes in, she sings, and it's right the first time. You know, like every time. She's a joy to work with. She really is. She's very professional. You know, she, even on the song Give It To Me, she came up with that melody. Dance to the da 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 da. There's a really cool jazz run on it. She did that. I'm like, where'd that come from? You know, because we were writing, she said, how about if the melody goes like this? I'm like, yeah. You know, so I enjoy that level of talent for sure.
Wow. But thank you so much, Mark.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it. It's I hope there's a Brazilian audience that gets introduced to my music that weren't aware of it before. And just what I'm going to do as well is,
Oh my God.
So this is the Kylie Minogue 12-inch that you can't get. So I'm going to use this to make sure that these don't fold, and I'll put 2 of them in there, and then you'll have the vinyl as well as the.
Oh my God.
Thank you
Peace.
so much.
Love.
Peace and love.
Until the next time.